But so I've been reading to you from the life of Pi, and if you'll remember, this is a young man. He's a teenager, grew up in India, growing up in India. His father is a zookeeper, but now they're leaving India for Canada, and they've taken the whole zoo with them, and they're on the ship, and it sinks. And Pi, that's the name of the young man, Pi finds himself in a lifeboat alone, except for animals. And one of the main animals is Richard Parker the tiger. And I mean a big Bengal tiger. And so this is, now he's been out on this, and he's figured out how to let a little boat go and keep it drifting behind. And so the main boat with the tarp over it has the tiger in it. And Richard Parker is this tiger's name. And so they're starving out there. They're trying to figure out how to feed themselves. They've gone through the rations. The tiger's eaten all the other animals on the lifeboat and so Pi is trying to figure out how to survive all of this and feed himself. So he talks about these sharks because he's out there. This is chapter 79 of Life of Pi by Jan Martel. There were sharks every day, mainly makos and blue sharks, but also oceanic white tips, and once a tiger shark straight from the blackest of nightmares. Dawn and dusk were their favorite times, and they never seriously troubled us, though. On occasion, one knocked the hull of the lifeboat with its tail, and I don't think it was accidental. Other marine life did too, turtles, even dorados. I believe it was the shark's way of determining the nature of the lifeboat. A good whack on the offender's nose with a hatchet sent it vanishing post-haste into the deep. The main nuisance of sharks was that they made being in the water risky, like trespassing on property where there's a sign saying, "Beware of a dog." Otherwise, Pi grew quite fond of sharks. And as they're coming through, he describes the sharks, the blue sharks with their small mouth and discreet gill slits, and the backs with rich ultramarine and their stomachs snow white. And then it talks about the makos larger and had mouths bursting with frightening teeth, and they were also were nicely colored, and indigo blue that shimmered beautifully in the sun. And then the oceanic white tips were often shorter than the mako, and some of them stretched to 12 feet, and they were much stockier and had enormous dorsal fins that sailed high above the surface of the water like a war banner. Well, Pi caught a number of small sharks, blue sharks for the most part, but some makos too. Each time it was just after sunset in the dying light of the day, and I caught them with my bare hands as they came close to the lifeboat. The first one was my largest, a mako over 4 feet long. It had come and gone near the bow several times and was passing by yet again, and I impulsively dropped my hand into the water and grabbed it just ahead of the tail where its body was thinnest. Its harsh skin afforded such a marvelously good grip that without thinking about it, what I was doing, I pulled. And as I pulled, it jumped, giving my arm a terrific shake, and to my horror and delight, the thing vaulted in the air in an explosion of water and spray. And for the merest fraction of a second, I didn't know what to do next. The thing was smaller than I, but I wasn't being a foolhardy Goliath here. Shouldn't I let it go? I turned and swung, and falling on the tarpaulin, I threw the mako towards the stern, and the fish fell from the sky into Richard Parker the tiger's territory. It landed with a crash and started thwacking about with a thunder that I was afraid it would demolish the boat, and Richard Parker was startled, and he attacked immediately. An epic battle began. Of interest to zoologists, I can report the following. A tiger will not at first attack a shark out of the water with its jaws, but will rather strike it with its forepaws. Richard Parker started clubbing the shark. I shuddered at every blow. They were simply terrible. Just one delivered to a human would break every bone, would turn any piece of furniture into splinters, would reduce an entire house into a pile of rubble. That the mako was not enjoying the treatment was evident from the way it was twisting and turning and beating its tail and reaching with its mouth. Perhaps it was because Richard Parker was not familiar with sharks. He'd never encountered a predatory fish. Whatever the case, it happened. An accident. One of those few times when I was reminded that Richard Parker was not perfect, that despite his honed instincts, he too could bumble. he put his left paw into the mako's mouth. The mako closed its jaws. Immediately, Richard Parker reared onto his back legs. The shark was jerked up, but it wouldn't let go. And Richard Parker fell back down, opened his mouth wide, and full out roared. I felt a blast of hot air against my body. The air visibly shook like the heat coming off a road in a hot day. And I can well imagine that somewhere far off, 150 miles away, a ship's watch looked up, startled, and later reported the oddest thing, that he thought he'd heard a cat's meow coming from 3 o'clock. Days later, that roar was still ringing in my guts. But a shark's deaf, conventionally speaking. So while I, who wouldn't think of pinching a tiger's paw, let alone trying to swallow one, received a volcanic roar and full in the face, and quaked and trembled and turned liquid with fear and collapsed, the shark perceived only a dull vibration. While Richard Parker started clawing the shark's head with his free paw and biting it with his jaws, while his rear legs began tearing its stomach and back, and the shark held onto its paw, its only line of defense and attack, and thrashed its tail. Tiger and shark twisted and tumbled about. With great effort, I managed to gain enough control of my body to get into the raft and release it. The lifeboat drifted away, and I saw flashes of orange and deep blue, of fur and skin, as the lifeboat rocked from side to side. Richard Parker's snarling was simply terrifying. At last, the boat stopped moving, and after several minutes, Richard Parker sat up, licking his left paw. You know, this Life of Pi is full of metaphors about things, about adrift at sea on your own, calling to God, surrounded by sharks, in a boat with a tiger. Sounds like some people's passage through this earth. That was his anyway. And so we go with that. More about that in just a minute. We had a visitor, and they've been in Key West and playing down there, but they played at the Steve Fest concert series, and that's Copperbox. And right now we want to hear from Copperbox. Let's hear the number 9 one.